If You Have Nightmares, We'll Dance on the Bed by Lefay, Strent. Chapter 3. Warnings for this chapter are violence, blood, mild gore, and minor character death. What's the matter, Verge? It's not like you to be so motivated, Deceit teased. He read the other's moves and dodged them easily before they could land. Virgil's fist breezed right by that smug face as Deceit merely tilted his head to the side. A gloved hand jabbed up into his abdomen, and while Virgil reared back at the last second, the blow still managed to push out all the air in his lungs. He choked on spit and was forced to retreat. "Shut up!" Virgil snarled, voice grating as he tried to recover his breath. He staggered against an armchair. Behind him he could sense Remy and Thomas. If Virgil died here, they wouldn't stand a chance. "I'm honestly curious," Deceit said. He leisurely paced in a wide circle, enjoying the scent of fear from his prey. What could make the little scaredy cat crawl out of his hidey hole? You've always been so quiet. Virgil willed a shadow to shoot out from the ground. It formed a spike that would have impaled Deceit's head. However, his head split into two, the two halves morphing into serpent heads. "Do you want to be the one to claim the child's life? Is that it?" The heads hissed in unison, red eyes boring into him. Virgil watched the tongues flicker out, watched the jaws unhinge in preparation. He shook his head furiously in an attempt to rid his sight of the illusion. Deceit had a knack for getting into people's heads. "I'm not like you," Virgil seethed. "No, you're not," Deceit cooed in delight. The body before him disappeared into smoke as something barreled into Virgil's side, knocking him onto the floor. The two of them rolled, clawing and jabbing at each other until Deceit came out on top. He hovered above Virgil, one eye dark while the other shone bright. Virgil struggled to move his hands, but snakes had emerged from the floor, effectively pinning his wrists. The room began to shift in ways it shouldn't. The walls pulsed, beating hearts bleeding, faces with mouths drawn open in silent screams. Virgil couldn't tell what was real anymore. "Did you really think you could take me on?" Deceit said, anger boiling up to the surface at the offense Virgil had caused. His voice echoed and pounded against his eardrums. Virgil let out a shriek as the snakes around his hands bit down. Searing agony, his blood boiling in his veins, his hands ripped apart to the bone. He choked on another scream. Virgil's body felt too heavy to fight back. Death gripped at his neck, keeping him from begging the others to make a run for it, no matter how useless it would be. "You're weak," Deceit hissed, baring his fangs. "Hey, Snakeface!" Deceit looked up. A flare of glaring light blasted him square in the face. The scaled skin sizzled. With a cry of outrage, Deceit flung himself away from Virgil and pawed at his face. Instantly, the room around them returned to normal. Virgil found he could move again. He snatched his hands to his chest, scanning them over. No blood, no puncture wounds. All an illusion. Remy stood above him and lowered his hand from where he had it raised. The light in his fingertips faded out. "We gotta go now!" Remy warned, yanking Virgil up to his feet. Deceit was blinded for now, but it wouldn't be for long. They fled the room. Virgil scooped up Thomas from where Remy had left him. He didn't trust Remy to keep up with him while being weighed down. Remy didn't stop to protest, racing forward and leading the way. If Remy didn't trust Virgil, at least he thought he was the lesser evil compared to Deceit. "Where are we going?" Virgil demanded. They rounded a bunch of corners, crossing through a maze of rooms. Virgil was dizzy trying to map out their course in his mind. "Throne room," Remy answered shortly. "I hope you have a plan, 'cause there's more where he came from." "I always have a plan," Remy said with a smirk. "It's called winging it." Virgil shook his head. He was beginning to like this guy. But damn if it wouldn't have been nice to have someone with an actual plan. Virgil never had reason to show his strength much, and he could probably take on a lot of Fae in one-on-one matches, albeit Deceit had always been a tricky bastard. If they didn't find help fast, Virgil wasn't sure how long they could last. Remus was probably picking off the guards that first showed up to Thomas's room. The wild Fae could easily be distracted like that. It was no surprise that Virgil had run into Deceit next. Deceit, ever the task-oriented one. The two of them usually worked together well, with Deceit pulling the strings. They didn't typically work with others, but Virgil wouldn't put it past Deceit to have brought some friends tonight. Virgil held Thomas closer and kept pace with Remy. This would be a long night. They grew closer to the central area of the castle. Virgil could sense groups of humans nearby and had to restrain the instinctive urge to turn tail and run. He had to trust that this was his only viable option and hope that Remy wouldn't immediately throw him to the wolves. The throne room lay up ahead. A cluster of guards stood outside the open doors and were surprised when Remy came hurtling towards them. "Make way! Hot noble coming through!" Remy bellowed. Recognizing the royal family member, the guards jumped out of the way and could only blink as a dark figure rushed in behind Remy. Inside, more groups of humans stood around. No, not standing around. They were organizing. All of the castle servants were huddled up nearby, most of them in varying states of dress, probably having been rudely awakened by the explosion when Remus hit Thomas's bedchambers. Many more guards were moving about, some rushing in to report back, others moving out. They had already received word about the missing prince, and had rightly assumed that the Fae were to blame. Room by room they searched the castle and the surrounding grounds for the threats and the missing prince. An air of authority surrounded one figure, who many of the guards rushed in to talk to. A tall man wearing black and navy robes. Logan, the wizard. "Lo!" Remy immediately called out to him once he spotted the man. Logan and half the room turned to look at him. Logan quickly set aside a piece of parchment he'd been writing on and rushed to meet him. "Thank goodness. We sent for you, but had assumed you'd be missing as well when you weren't to be found." Remy scratched the back of his head. "Yeah, sorry about that. I heard the big booms and thought I'd skedaddle, but then I ended up getting lost, so—" "Remy." "What? It's a big castle. It's not my fault." At that time a scream ran out. "A Fae! A Fae!" One of the maids in a nightgown shrieked, pointing in terror. Virgil stiffened, hunching over Thomas protectively while his eyes darted around for trouble. More screams and hollers went up around Virgil. Oh. They meant Virgil, didn't they? Logan shoved Remy behind himself, despite the squawk it elicited from the man. Everyone that didn't already have a weapon out drew their swords against Virgil. Virgil was beginning to feel like he wasn't welcome. One of the guards moved a little too close to Virgil, and he hissed at him. The guard scrambled back, and the whole room held its breath, expecting Virgil to pounce. Virgil wouldn't give them what they wanted. After a moment, the wizard spoke. "Your mistake, coming here," Logan said. His eyes ignited in a neon blue. "Unhand the prince, and I'll make your demise painless." "You've got the wrong idea," Virgil said, feeling a strong sense of déjà vu. Somehow he doubted it would do any good this time. Crowds were much harder to convince. He was just another monster to these people. Still, he couldn't just let go of Thomas. "Don't be mad!" Thomas cried out. Virgil stared down at him, stunned. The boy was defending him? Again? To all these humans? "Your Royal Highness, I know you're scared," Logan started. "He's not a bad guy," Thomas yelled. "He saved me. My room exploded, but he got me out." "I think you must be mistaken, sir," Logan said, trying to be gentle but unable to lose the serious edge in his voice at the sight of a prince being held by the enemy. "A group of Fae have infiltrated the castle, presumably to hurt you like they did your parents." "If that's true, why'd he follow me here?" Remy asked. He shouldered his way around Logan, ignoring the way he tried to pull him back. "I didn't think it was true at first, but we ran into a Fae in the East Wing. Bastard was trying to pretend to be Patton. I called him out and he didn't like that very much, so Tall, Dark, and Dangerous over here fought him off." Logan glanced between Remy and Virgil. The amount of hard skepticism on his face didn't exactly inspire confidence. "Infighting happens all the time," he explained it away. "It's easy to theorize that each of them wants to be the one to end the royal bloodline." "Then why'd he follow me here?" Remy asked again. He gave a wide gesture at Virgil. "I stunned the other Fae, and this one could have hauled ass with Thomas, but I told him to follow me, and he did. I don't know why he's protecting my cuz, but I think he realizes that the only people that will help him to do that are us humans." "And why would a Fae protect human?" Logan demanded, now looking at Virgil. Virgil was getting tired of the high and mighty way he glared at him. Virgil scoffed at him. "As if anything I say will matter." "On the contrary, what you say could matter greatly," Logan corrects. "Seeing how your kind can't lie. The trouble is getting you to be straightforward. You Fae do so love riddles and misdirection." Virgil leveled a glare at him. "I'm not here to hurt Thomas. I'm not with the other Fae. But even telling you that won't rid you of your suspicion, now will it?" "Quite right," Logan agreed. "It leaves a lot of questions to be asked. Most importantly, what you are here for, if not to hurt Thomas." Virgil opened his mouth to respond, but just as quickly shut it. His ears tickled with sounds that humans couldn't hear. He snapped his head up. Attached to the ceiling, like some kind of spider, was another Fae. One Virgil recognized. "Oh, guess you caught me." Emil smiled big and wide, but still Virgil was the only one who knew he was there. "Look out!" Virgil shouted to the unsuspecting humans. They began muttering to each other, figuring it was a trap, but some inevitably did glance up to see the sight of Emil throwing himself from the ceiling and descending upon them. "Dun! Da-da-dun! Dun-da-da-dun!" Emil bellowed, materializing a giant double-sided axe as he fell. He brought the blade right down on Virgil's head. Virgil barely had time to throw up a wall of shadow to block him and leap backwards. He couldn't even throw out a counter-strike, what with Thomas in his arms. He had to stay on the defensive and evade. All the humans fell over themselves trying to get back. Kinda a smart move when an axe-wielding Fae suddenly falls from the ceiling. Emil stood in the midst of them, looking like he hadn't just tried to strike Virgil down. His eyes were closed, and a happy smile shone on his face. "Virg, what the heck are you doing here?" Emil asked good-naturedly. "What a coincidence, huh?" Virgil backed up a step, moving closer to where Remy and Logan stood. "Friend of yours?" he heard Logan ask, and just knew that he was addressing Virgil. "Not even close," Virgil said, teeth clenched. Emil opened his eyes, one light blue, the other electric pink, both staring at him in faux shock. "Now, Virg, it's not nice to spread lies." "Good thing I can't, then," Virgil responded. Over his shoulder he hissed, "I hope those robes aren't just for show. He may act nice, but he's ruthless." Emil blinked around himself as if just noticing the crowd of people. "Oh, howdy, folks! You can call me Emil. I'm here to help." "Help what exactly?" Virgil asked scathingly, knowing that the other shoe was about to drop. Emil's eyes narrowed as his smile turned absolutely vicious. "Why, help you all reach your full potential as blood spatters." An antsy guard shot forward, followed by another. They raised their swords, rushing in. Faster than most could see, Emil ducked the first swing and swiped his axe to the side, effectively disemboweling the first man. The second redirected her swing. She twirled around her dying comrade and made to slash at Emil's back. A spear shot out of Emil's back, skewering right through her. She choked out blood, dropping the sword to hold the rod of the weapon. "Oopsie-daisy, did I do that?" Emil chuckled. It all happened in a matter of seconds. Screams pierced through the air. Thomas had ducked his crying face into Virgil's cloaked shoulder. Behind him he could hear either Remy or Logan speaking out the name of some deity in horror. Even Virgil found it hard to watch and stomach. The spear snapped back into Emil's body, and the guard fell to the floor, shivering and whimpering in agony. Emil stood up straight, his clothes smattered with red. "Okay, who's next?" Emil said politely. A cackle rang out from somewhere outside the throne room. Emil turned towards the doors curiously. Guards ran in, most of them bloody. "Hey, that wasn't me!" Emil pointed at them, defending himself as if they'd accused him, yet delighted at the new arrivals. It was like they were running away from someone. A dark figure bounced into the room happily, still cackling away. Of course, it was Remus. In one hand he held up his morning star, and the other he lifted up a limp body by the back of their shoulder to show to the room. "Looky who I got!" Remus announced proudly. Roman, Army General, proven war hero, bloodied, bruised, and barely conscious.